Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
9-year-old girl pregnant, and just before birth, doctors discover something terrifying. Maya, a petite girl standing just about 1.15 meters tall, with a slender build and a youthful face that made her look barely 9 years old, was in a state of emergency. She wore a simple white dress, her big, round eyes filled with fear and pain. Her stomach was round and prominent, standing out on her small frame. Beside her was Paul, a 37-year-old man with a face full of worry and tension. He ran frantically into the hospital, carrying the girl in his arms, and cried out in desperation. "Doctor, please, save her." Paul's shouts echoed down the hospital hallway, drawing everyone's attention. The nurses froze as they saw them, while patients and their companions looked on in shock and concern. "What happened?" a nurse asked, trying to stay calm as she approached the two. When she saw Maya's condition, she tried to remain professional but couldn't help feeling a surge of anger within. "The girl is in labor," Paul cried out, his voice breaking with desperation. "Please, we need help." Without wasting a second, the nurse called over the intercom. "We need a stretcher at the main entrance immediately." While waiting for the stretcher, the nurse tried to comfort Maya, who was nearly unconscious from the pain. "Hang on, little one, we're going to help you," she said gently, though inside, she felt more and more angry and confused. How could a girl so young be in this situation? When the stretcher arrived, they gently placed Maya on it and rushed her into the emergency room. Paul tried to follow, but another nurse stopped him. "I'm sorry, sir, but you'll have to wait here," she said firmly but with empathy. "We'll take care of the girl. We need to know what happened." Paul nodded, his face a mixture of anguish and despair. She's my responsibility," he whispered, his words choked by the weight of the situation. "I can't leave her alone." Inside the emergency room, doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to stabilize Maya. The on-call doctor, a man with years of experience, had never seen anything like this before. As he washed his hands, he thought about the moment he started his shift, assuming it would be just a normal day. "What kind of monster could do this?" he muttered, anger clear in his eyes. Meanwhile, in the waiting room, murmurs turned into audible conversations as people tried to understand what they had just witnessed. "That girl can't be older than 10, a pregnant woman said, her face pale with disbelief. "And the man with her," another person added scornfully. "He must be the one responsible. How could anyone do something so horrible? He's got to be some sort of pervert," someone else whispered, voice dripping with disgust. "He should be in jail for what he did." Amidst the rising tension, Paul sat in a corner, head in his hands, trying to block out the criticism around him. He knew he couldn't let others' words get to him. What mattered most was Maya's health. In the operating room, the doctor approached Maya, trying to comfort her before she went under anesthesia. "I'll do everything I can to help you," he said with determination as he began the procedure. The medical team prepared for the unexpected, nurses moving in and out with necessary supplies, avoiding glances at the man waiting outside. Their minds were focused on the girl on the operating table, and a question echoed in their thoughts: how did this young girl end up in this situation? Time seemed to stand still as the hospital became filled with a tense, expectant silence. Outside, the murmuring continued to fill the air, a mixture of outrage and morbid curiosity, but at the center of this tragedy was only a little girl and the medical team fighting for her life and that of her child. Outside the emergency room, the tension continued to rise. Paul sat on a chair in the hallway, head buried in his hands, quietly sobbing as worry ate away at him. Maya had been taken into emergency care to give birth, and the uncertainty of her condition tormented him. Around him, murmurs grew louder, first as soft whispers and then quickly as clear, judgmental conversations. "That girl can't be older than 10, a woman whispered to her companion, her eyes wide with disbelief. "And the man with her," another person added scornfully. "We need to call the police," a voice said from the far end of the room. "We can't just stand by and let this happen." A nurse who had been observing the scene with a mixture of anger and professionalism approached Paul. "Sir, we need to know exactly what happened," she said firmly, though not without compassion. Paul looked at her with desperate eyes. "Maya, she needs help, that's what matters most right now," he answered, his voice choked with emotion. The nurse nodded, understanding that she wouldn't be able to get more information from him in this state. "We'll do everything we can to help her," she said, trying to reassure him. Meanwhile, an older woman with a scowling face and arms crossed couldn't hold back her anger any longer. "This is a disgrace. That man should be locked up," she shouted, directing her fury at Paul. "Yes, we can't let someone like him roam free," another person agreed, as more and more people joined in the condemnation. "Please, everyone, calm down," a head nurse intervened, trying to maintain order. "We're in a hospital and need to focus on caring for our patients." "But we can't ignore what's happening here," a young woman responded, looking at Paul with contempt. "How could anyone do something so horrific?" The waiting room was filled with murmurs of agreement, while some people took out their phones to call the police. The tension became unbearable, and Paul, feeling cornered, could only close his eyes, trying to block everything around him. Suddenly, a tall, muscular man stood up from his seat and walked decisively toward Paul. Without saying a word, he grabbed Paul by the collar and lifted him off the chair. "You're a lowlife," the man yelled, his face flushed with anger. "How could you do this to a child?" Paul, shocked and afraid, raised his hands as if to surrender. "No, wait, you don't understand," he tried to explain, his voice trembling. "There's nothing to understand," the man retorted, gripping tighter. "You're a monster, and you're going to pay for this." The situation was spiraling out of control when a nurse rushed over to intervene, trying to separate the man from Paul. "Stop it, let him go," she shouted, positioning herself between them. "We've already called the police, they'll handle this." The man released Paul with a push, causing him to fall back onto the chair. The nurse quickly checked if Paul was okay before turning to the angry man. "I understand your anger, but we can't allow violence here. Let the authorities take care of it." Paul, breathing heavily, sat back down, trying to stay calm. He knew there was nothing he could do to change others' perceptions right now, but he had to stay strong for Maya. A few minutes later, 2 police officers entered the room, responding to the series of calls from witnesses. They walked straight toward Paul, their faces serious and professional. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one of the officers said, placing a firm but non-threatening hand on Paul's shoulder. "But Maya, she needs me," Paul tried to resist, his voice choking up. "We'll investigate what's going on here," the other officer said. "But we need you to come with us to clarify some details." With a heavy heart and a mind clouded by worry, Paul stood up and followed the officers, while whispers and judgmental stares continued to surround him. He knew he had to explain the truth, but at that moment, the only thing he could think about was Maya's safety, desperately hoping that the doctors could save her. Walking to the police station felt like a journey of shame, each step echoing in Paul's mind, reminding him of the severity of the situation. The murmurs and disdainful glances from those around him felt like poisonous arrows piercing his soul. When they arrived at the police station, Paul was led into an interrogation room. The room was cold and bare, with gray walls and a buzzing fluorescent light. A metal table and uncomfortable chairs only heightened the sense of isolation and despair. "Sit down," one of the detectives ordered, pointing to the chair in front of him. Paul complied, feeling the cold bite of the handcuffs on his wrists. "I'm Detective Sophia, and this is Detective Gonzalez," the man said, opening a thick file. "We've received accusations suggesting you've committed a very serious act. We'd like to hear your side of the story." Paul took a deep breath. "Maya is not a child," he began, his voice steady though full of emotion. "She is my English teacher, she's 27 years old, but she has a rare condition that makes her look much younger. She may appear like a child, but she's the best English teacher in the city and very kind-hearted. Today, When she came to my house to teach me English as she usually does, after about an hour, she started experiencing abdominal pain and seemed to faint. I was terrified, so I rushed her to the hospital. She once mentioned she had been in a long-term relationship and was planning to marry soon. Now, I don't even know who to contact as her family. The two detectives exchanged glances, their faces expressionless. You expect us to believe that? One of them asked, a note of skepticism in his voice. It sounds like a convenient excuse. This isn't an excuse, Paul insisted. Just wait until she wakes up, and she'll tell you everything herself. I've seen her medical diagnosis confirming her pituitary disorder. The other detective leaned forward, his gaze stern. Then why has no one heard of this condition before, and why is there no one to corroborate your story? We'll need more than just your word. The detective folded his arms. This situation looks very different from our perspective. Suddenly, the interrogation room door opened, and a lawyer with a determined expression stepped in. I'm his attorney, he declared. I request a private conversation with my client. The detectives reluctantly left the room, leaving Paul and his lawyer alone. The lawyer, Mr. Delgado, sat down across from Paul, his face a mixture of concern and resolve. Paul, I've spoken with Maya, Mr. Delgado said. She's stable and is trying to manage the situation, but you need to stay calm and trust that we will clarify everything. Thank you, Paul whispered, feeling a wave of relief. This is a terrible misunderstanding. I know, Mr. Delgado replied. But we need to prove that with evidence. I'm working on obtaining Maya's medical records and reaching out to her doctor. When the detectives returned, Mr. Delgado stood up. Detectives, my client has the right to legal representation. These preliminary documents support Maya's condition. One detective took the documents, examining them closely. This is only the beginning, he said sternly. We need to verify each detail, and until then, Mr. Paul will remain in custody. This isn't fair, Paul protested, feeling a sense of hopelessness spreading throughout his body. Maya needs my support, and I am also a victim of this situation. I understand, the detective said, though his tone remained skeptical. But until we can verify everything, we must proceed cautiously. The following hours were a tense mix of uncertainty and waiting. Paul was taken to a holding cell where time seemed to stand still, his thoughts swirling like a storm, reminding him of every happy moment with Maya and the cruel reality they now faced. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Maya, a young woman with a childlike appearance but with a prominent belly, was quickly taken into the delivery room. The situation was so unusual that everyone present couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves, filled with astonishment and concern. Dr. Guadalupe, the lead doctor that night, walked quickly toward the delivery room, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. How could this be? He asked himself repeatedly. He had seen many unusual cases throughout his career, but this was entirely new. Prepare for an emergency C-section, Dr. Guadalupe ordered as soon as he entered the delivery room. Nurses and assistants moved quickly, setting up surgical instruments and ensuring Maya was ready for the procedure. Maya lay on the stretcher, her eyes tightly shut and her face pale with pain and exhaustion. Though frail-looking, her body showed all the signs of a woman in labor. Doctor, her vital signs are stable, a nurse reported, breaking the tense silence. Dr. Guadalupe nodded, putting on his surgical gloves. Very well, let's begin. As he made the first incision, Dr. Guadalupe couldn't help but notice certain details. Maya's internal organs appeared fully developed and in perfect condition. Her uterus and ovaries resembled those of an adult woman, not of a child. Unbelievable, he muttered, though his remark didn't go unnoticed by the team. What's going on, doctor? Asked head nurse Martina, her voice a mix of curiosity and concern. Dr. Guadalupe looked back at her, his eyes filled with astonishment. This girl's organs are entirely normal for a woman in her 20s. There's nothing to suggest she should appear the way she does. The team continued to work in silence, processing the information as they assisted with the delivery. After a few tense minutes, the loud, clear cry of a newborn filled the room, a wave of relief washing over everyone present. "It's a boy," Dr. Guadalupe announced, holding up the newborn for Maya to see before the nurses took him away to clean and check him. After ensuring the baby was stable, Dr. Guadalupe refocused on Maya, carefully completing the surgery to ensure no complications. Once Maya was transferred to the recovery room, Dr. Guadalupe removed his gloves and mask, still deep in thought. "We need to investigate this further," he said aloud to the team. "Something doesn't align with what we know." Hours later, Maya began to regain consciousness, slowly opening her eyes and blinking at the bright lights in the room. Beside her, a nurse was holding her son, wrapped in a soft blanket. "Maya, your son is healthy and strong," the nurse said with a reassuring smile. "Would you like to hold him?" Maya nodded weakly, her eyes filling with tears as she cradled the baby in her arms. Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. The nurse watched the scene with affection before continuing. "Maya, we need to speak with you about your condition. There are some things Dr. Guadalupe needs to understand." Maya nodded, knowing that this moment would come. "I know, I'm ready to explain." Dr. Guadalupe entered, his face still reflecting the gravity of the situation. He approached Maya's bed and took a seat on a nearby chair. "Maya, your internal organs have fully developed like those of an adult woman," he began, carefully choosing his words. "However, your appearance remains that of a child. Can you help us understand how this is possible?" Maya nodded, adjusting the baby in her arms. "I have a rare condition called pituitary dwarfism," she explained with a soft yet resolute tone. "It affects my pituitary gland, preventing my body from growing and maturing outwardly, though internally, I am a fully grown woman." Dr. Guadalupe nodded slowly, processing the information. "This explains a lot, but we need to document everything accurately. We'll need to contact your previous doctors and gather all possible medical records." Maya looked at the baby and then back at the doctor. "I understand. I'll do everything I can to help." Just then, a nurse entered the room with a concerned look. "Dr. Guadalupe, there's something you need to know. Paul, the man who brought Maya to the emergency room, has been detained by the police. They are charging him with a very serious offense." Maya felt as though the world was collapsing around her. "No, this is a mistake," she exclaimed, her voice filled with despair. "Paul is my student, he hasn't done anything wrong, he helped me." Dr. Guadalupe stood up, his face turning serious. "I'll speak with the authorities immediately. We need to clarify this situation right away." The hours that followed were a mixture of anxiety and waiting. Maya was interviewed by several nurses and doctors who were trying to gather all the necessary information. Meanwhile, Dr. Guadalupe reached out to Maya's previous doctors to retrieve her medical records. Finally, Dr. Guadalupe met with Police Captain Miguel in a private room at the hospital. "Captain, I need to speak with you about Paul," he began, his tone formal and urgent. "I'm listening, doctor," the captain replied, his face expressionless. "Paul is not a criminal. His English teacher, Maya, has a rare medical condition that affects her physical development," Dr. Guadalupe explained, handing the captain a file containing the medical documentation. "These documents prove it." The captain examined the documents carefully, his expression softening as he read. "I understand, doctor. This is highly unusual, but we will do everything possible to clarify the situation." Meanwhile, in the recovery room, Maya held her child tightly, praying that everything would soon be resolved. Finally, the door opened, and Dr. Guadalupe entered with a look of relief. "Maya, I have good news," he said gently. "Captain Miguel has reviewed the documents, and they have agreed to release Paul while we continue the investigation. Everything will be okay." Maya sighed in relief, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, doctor, thank you for everything." At that moment, Paul was led back into the room by two officers. His face showed clear signs of stress, but it brightened when he saw Maya and her baby. "Maya," he whispered, approaching the bed. "Are you okay?" Maya looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Paul, I'll be all right. Thank you so much for saving me." That night, Maya confided in Paul. "Paul, have you noticed that I haven't been as passionate in teaching English lately? I truly apologize for that, especially since you said you needed to learn English quickly for work." Paul smiled, replying, "I just assumed it was because you were tired from the pregnancy." "I understood." "No, it wasn't the pregnancy making me tired," Maya explained, her voice trembling. "I was exhausted from what has happened recently. The man I had loved for a long time, the one I thought I'd marry happily, left me and our child." Tears began to fall down Maya's cheeks. Paul was shocked and silent. "His family never accepted me because of my unusual appearance. They saw me as a child and he, in the end, refused to stand by me. He ended our relationship and cut off contact without even asking about his child," Maya continued. "Maya, I had no idea you went through something so terrible," Paul said sincerely. "To me, you've never appeared unusual at all. I see only a skilled, lovely, and incredibly kind young woman. I've learned a lot about you, and you're admired and appreciated by so many." Paul hesitated, then continued. "Maya, if possible, would you give me the chance to care for you and your child? The truth is, I've liked you for a long time, but I knew you had a fiancé, so I kept my feelings in check." And so, Maya and Paul soon became a couple. As they completed the discharge procedures, Dr. Guadalupe and his team continued to document Maya's case to ensure she and her baby received the best possible care. Maya's case became one of the most memorable experiences in Dr. Guadalupe's career. Despite having given birth to a healthy baby boy, her petite and delicate physique, due to her height and unique medical condition, required her to stay in the hospital for extended care. News of her case spread quickly throughout the hospital, creating both curiosity and deep empathy among the staff and other patients. Every day, Paul stayed by Maya's side, caring for her and the baby with a dedication that touched everyone around them. The nurses, though accustomed to many situations, couldn't help but feel a bit envious seeing the affection and love Paul showed for his girlfriend. "Today, we have oatmeal, orange juice, and some fresh fruit," Nurse Sophia said with a warm smile as she placed the food tray on the table next to Maya's bed. "Thank you, Nurse Sophia," Maya replied, trying to sit up, her voice gentle but full of gratitude. "Everyone here has been so kind to me." The nurse nodded, adjusting the pillow behind Maya to make her more comfortable. "It's the least we can do. Your case is very special to all of us." At that moment, Paul entered the room, holding baby Bembi in his arms. His face lit up as he saw Maya, and he leaned down to kiss her softly on the forehead. "Good morning, my love," Paul said tenderly. "Bembi and I came to visit you." Maya smiled, her eyes shining with love and gratitude. "Good morning, Paul. How is our little one?" "He's healthy," Paul replied, gently holding the baby. "Strong and well, thanks to you." Nurse Sophia observed the scene with a smile. "Paul, you're a wonderful father. We don't often see someone so devoted and loving." "Thank you, Nurse Sophia," Paul said, looking at Maya with devotion. "I'll do anything for my family." In the days that followed, Paul and Maya's relationship did not go unnoticed by other patients and hospital staff. Their love and dedication to each other became a frequent topic of conversation, garnering admiration and respect. One afternoon, as Paul helped Maya walk around the hallway to strengthen her legs, an elderly patient, Mrs. Anna, approached them. "Excuse me," she said with a kind smile. "I just wanted to say that you both have inspired me so much. Seeing the love and care you have for each other is truly beautiful. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. You are our biggest motivation to keep creating. Let us know where you're watching from so we can see how far this video has reached around the world. Don't forget to hit like if you found it interesting, and share it with your friends too. Thank you, Mrs. Anna, Maya replied, leaning on Paul's arm. We've been through a lot together, and we are so grateful to have each other. Mrs. Anna nodded, her eyes full of understanding. That's the most important thing. Love and family are the most precious things in life. As the days passed, Maya gradually recovered, though her condition still required continuous care. Each day, Paul made sure she was comfortable, bringing fresh flowers, reading her favorite books, and ensuring she had everything she needed. One afternoon, after helping Maya sit up from a short walk, a younger nurse, Miss Louise, approached with a shy smile. "Excuse me," she said, a bit nervously. "I just wanted to say that we all talk about how wonderful you are, Paul. The way you care for Maya and your son is truly inspiring." Paul smiled, gently squeezing Maya's hand. "Thank you, Miss Louise. I'm just doing what any husband would do for the woman he loves." Maya looked at Paul, her eyes filled with happy and grateful tears. "You're the most amazing person, Paul. I don't know what I would do without you." Miss Louise nodded, clearly moved. "You two are a remarkable couple. I hope you'll both recover soon and be able to enjoy life together." Their relationship not only touched the nurses but also caught the attention of the medical staff. Dr. Guadalupe, who had closely monitored Maya's recovery, often stopped to talk with them. "Paul, Maya," Dr. Guadalupe said one afternoon as he reviewed Maya's file. "I am truly impressed by the way you both have handled this situation. Your love and dedication are remarkable." "Thank you, Doctor," Paul replied, while Maya nodded in agreement. "We are very grateful for everything everyone here has done for us." Dr. Guadalupe smiled as he closed the file. "Helping a strong and united family like yours is an honor for us. Maya, your recovery is progressing well. With just a bit more time and care, you'll be ready to go home soon." The doctor's words brought a wave of relief and hope to Maya and Paul. They knew that the road to full recovery was still ahead, but they faced each day with determination and the unwavering support of those around them. As the sun set over the hospital, painting the sky with warm shades of orange and pink, Maya lay back on the bed with Paul and baby Bembi beside her. She felt a deep sense of peace and boundless gratitude for the life and love she shared with her family. "Maya," Paul whispered, gently stroking her hair. "I love you more than anything in the world. Nothing can change that." "And I love you too, Paul," Maya replied, her eyes brimming with emotion. "I am so thankful for you, for everything." Surrounded by the warmth and support of loved ones and hospital staff, Maya and Paul knew that no matter the challenges they faced, they would always have each other. Their love, now stronger than ever, was the true source of strength that kept them grounded and guided them toward a bright and hopeful future. After a few weeks in the hospital, the day finally came for Maya, Paul, and their little Bembi to go home. The sun shone brightly in the sky, a sign of a fresh beginning for this young family. Paul gently pushed Maya's wheelchair as she held Bembi in her arms, his rosy cheeks and bright eyes taking in the surroundings with a child's curiosity. "We're ready to go home, Maya," Paul said with a warm smile as he helped his wife slowly stand up from the wheelchair. "Everything will be all right." "Yes, Paul, I'm ready," Maya replied, feeling a mix of excitement and relief. "I can't wait to begin this new chapter with our family." As they stepped out of the hospital, they were greeted by a crowd of reporters and photographers. Camera flashes went off continuously, capturing every moment as the family made their way toward the exit. "Maya, Paul, how does it feel to be going home?" one of the reporters shouted. "We feel incredibly lucky and grateful," Paul replied, gently squeezing Maya's hand. "The love and support we've received has given us the strength to overcome it all." "Maya, tell us about your experience in the hospital," another reporter asked, holding the microphone toward her. Maya smiled, her eyes filled with gratitude. It was a challenging journey, but we had an amazing medical team and my wonderful boyfriend by my side. I'm so thankful for all the love and care we've received. As they moved forward, reporters continued asking questions, but Paul and Maya remained calm and thankful, fully aware that their story had touched many hearts. Once they arrived home, the family began adjusting to their new life together. Time passed quickly, and Bembe grew up healthy and strong, thanks to the unconditional love of his parents. Paul and Maya's story became an inspiration to many, a reminder that true love can overcome any obstacle. 6 years later, on a quiet summer afternoon, Paul and Maya sat on their porch, watching Bembe play in the garden. The setting sun cast everything in a warm golden light, and the air was filled with the laughter of their son. "Look at our little one, Maya," Paul said with a smile, his eyes full of pride and love. "I think Bembe might want a little sibling to play with." "I've been thinking the same thing," Maya said, feeling moved. "Being with you has been wonderful, having someone who truly loves me and our child without caring about my unusual appearance. Someone like you is truly hard to find, and I feel so lucky," Maya said, holding Paul's hand tightly. "I love you." Paul nodded, gently squeezing Maya's hand in return. "We've been through so much, but every moment has been worth it. I'm so grateful to have you and Bembe." "And I'm grateful to have you, Paul," Maya said, her eyes brimming with happy tears. "Your love and support are my strength. I don't know what I would do without you." "I'll always be here for you, Maya," Paul said, leaning down to kiss her gently. "No matter what the future holds, I know we can get through anything together." At that moment, Bembe ran toward them, his face beaming with a mischievous smile. "Mom, Dad, look what I found," he called out, holding up a small bug in his hand. Maya and Paul laughed, enjoying the pure joy of their son. "That's wonderful, Bembe," Paul said, ruffling his son's hair. "You're an amazing little explorer." As the sun set, the family stayed together on the porch, savoring the peace and happiness of being with each other. Paul and Maya's story was not only a testament to their love and resilience but also an inspiration to everyone fortunate enough to know them. And so, surrounded by the love of their son and the unwavering support of each other, Paul and Maya looked to the future with hope and confidence, knowing that together, they could face any challenge and cherish every moment of their life together.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.